roll history, to me,
Tina's the best.
Janis Joplin.
Debbie Harry.
Definitely one of the coolest ones, I think, on the list.
My gal, Bonnie Raitt. Now that's a voice.
Aretha Franklin is the most significant female singer in my life.
Joni Mitchell, she is the queen.
I just want to know why I'm not the greatest.
This is the final hour of VH1's 100 Greatest Women of Rock and Roll. We're about to count down the top 20 artists on our list. But don't forget what this is all about. Celebrating how female artists have been smack in the middle of the rock and roll hurricane from day one. Without all the women on our list, and many, many others, rock and roll wouldn't be much to make noise about. In case you're tuning in for the first time, take a look at how the 100 greatest were determined.
VH1 asked the world's most influential women to name the greatest women in the history of rock and roll. Ballots were sent, votes were calculated, and now each of these 100 artists will have a place of their own in rock and roll history.
It's nice to see the women finally got the vote. Now, check out the incredible artists we've already seen. The artist leading off our top 20 was the high priestess of the 60s, whose revolutionary voice and antics defined the hippie generation.
When the truth is found. Amidst the flowers and incense of the Woodstock era comes a voice that competes in sheer power with the electric guitars around her.
All the joy within you dies. Don't you want somebody to love? Don't you need somebody to love?
I thought she was so cool, and her voice was so incredible, and so there, and so out there. You knew that was Grace Slick.
One pill makes you larger, and one pill makes you small.
Former fashion model Grace Slick may have looked like a hippie chick, but she was anything but mellow.
The way that Grace walked around the stage, she kind of patrolled the stage in her own, like, kind of slinky way, and incredibly cool.
As one of the first truly commanding female voices in rock, Slick led a psychedelic generation through experimentation.
I just admire the fact that she was out there so alone and just going for it, you know, and doing a really good job at what she did.
When Slick was invited to the White House during the Nixon administration, she arrived with 600 micromilligrams of LSD with the intention of spiking the First Lady's Tea Party. Back in her day, this next artist was another who shared a love for rock's indulgences. She once described herself as living on the borderline of a breakdown or a breakthrough.
At last, my love has come along.
She was the very first bad girl of rock. With her suggestive lyrics, bold hip shakes, and flamboyant persona,
I just wanna make love to you. Love.
R&B legend Etta James never tried to be cute or harmless.
Oh yeah, something
feisty. I like feisty entertainers.
Platinum blonde and heavily made up, Etta was a gal who could take on the guys singing heavy soul.
I am a huge Etta James fan. This woman has so much power behind her voice. And she's a baritone. She's so baritone and so soulful and sexy sounding. Ah.
To many, this next woman's voice is R&B. Her destiny was determined at just 7 years old when she won $2,000 in a talent contest for her singing.
Born out of the gospel tradition, the First Lady of Soul has been performing since the age of 4.
Too much for the man. Too much for the man.
Along with her cousins, Edward, William, and her brother, Bubba, Gladys Knight and the Pips were an unstoppable R&B force whose name became synonymous with perfection in performance.
He's leaving, leaving. Oh, that midnight train is yours. Leaving on the midnight train.
Her gritty and passionate voice has spanned 5 decades and spawned nearly 30 hits, making Gladys Knight one of the greatest soul singers of all time.
Gladys Knight is like the hardest working woman in showbiz. I mean, she's got a groove thing that's unbelievable.
The best voice that ever happened. There is no one like Gladys Knight. There was also the ever-presence of God in her voice.
He keeps putting a song in my heart, and that's just something wonderful.
The artist at number 17 took R&B to the funkiest place it had ever been. Her real name is Yvette, but she changed it to the more appropriate Chaka, which is African for fire.
She heated up the airwaves with her sexy vocals and reigned supreme in the world of funk. As frontwoman of Rufus, the mesmerizing Chaka Khan electrified audiences in the 70s with her seductive performances.
Tell me something good. Tell me that you love me, yeah.
Chaka Khan, Rufus, the group. Awesome. We used to always have Chaka Khan playing in the house. Rufus and Chaka Khan, like all the time.
Her voice is an incredible instrument. It's not necessarily the notes that she hits, it's how she hits them.
I mean, the girl can sing. This woman can sing.
As a solo artist, Khan's versatile voice explored R&B, jazz, and rap, and scored her one of the biggest hits of the 80s.
Chaka Khan. Really nice to look at. Chaka Khan. This beautiful smile and just that really sexy voice, you know.
I think she's amazing. It makes me smile, it makes me happy, it makes me groove down the street like crazy.
We're at number 17, and this hour we're taking you all the way to the top. Come back, we've got rock's beloved Gypsy.
Oh, the witch, I love it.
The act at number 16 is the highest-ranking girl group in our special. 4 Detroit schoolgirls came together in the late 50s and became the queens of Motown, churning out one Motor City classic after another.
The name on the gold record simply says, The Supremes.
From the projects to the pop charts, Diana Ross and the Supremes enchanted the 60s with 12 number ones.
And there ain't nothing I can do about it.
Style and and charm from head to toe, their voices matched as well as their wardrobe. With infectious melodies and a polished sound, the Supremes laid the groundwork for every girl power band to come along since.
You've given me a true love, and every day I thank you.
I'm very grateful for groups like the Supremes that have gone on ahead of us because they've helped pave the road and make it easier for female artists today.
Whenever you're near, I hear a symphony.
Supremes were sexy and fashionable and all of that kind of stuff. In this group, there's something for everybody.
The Supremes' popularity rivaled even that of the Beatles during their peak in the 60s. Our next artist has few peers among the poets of rock history.
Jesus died for somebody's sins, but not mine.
As a poet, painter, songwriter, and bandleader, she changed the terrain of male-dominated rock simply by introducing a new idea, herself.
Patti sort of the Allen Ginsberg beat poet school of rock.
The cauldron was a bubbling, the flesh was lean.
Patti Smith embodied the forces of rock from the demonic to the sublime. It wasn't always pretty, and that was exactly the point.
She brought this surreal, really invigorating energy to music.
Take me now, baby, here as I am.
She brought a certain level of sophistication because her lyrics were more challenging.
Desire's hunger is the fire I breathe.
Some of the imagery that she writes in her words, the way that she uses her voice and the way that she combines that with music, to me is just breathtaking.
This next woman spent the 60s opening up for Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix as a member of one of her first bands, Fritz.
Her trademark shawl spread like wings around her. The eccentric Stephanie Lynn Nicks had a charisma rock had never witnessed before.
Oh, now you know that's the reason why love's the state of mind.
Stevie, to me, was like the rock and roll princess. Her voice was so velvety and so beautiful, but at the same time, she was writing lyrics that were really mystical and dark.
Stevie's imaginative songwriting was a force behind some of Fleetwood Mac's most successful songs.
Oh, the witch. I love her, the magic witch.
Her 1981 solo debut became a #1 album and launched her mystical legacy.
She's the first feminine, really lovely but strong female songwriter that I can think of. She's got a lot of mojo.
The artist at number 13 sang in the school glee club as a girl, but her teachers thought her shyness would prevent her from ever becoming a performer. Were they ever wrong?
She dropped out of school and ran away from home the year before her big break. But when the 17-year-old Ella sang at the Apollo Theater in 1934, she brought down the house and launched a jazz legacy.
There was never anyone like Ella. There was no one that ever came near her.
Fitzgerald. Her voice is very versatile and very playful. I mean, she was very good with the band. Instead of just being a singer that was in front of the band, she really was in the band.
She's like Sinatra, you know, the female version of Sinatra.
Her incomparable interpretations of American popular music placed her in a class of her own and made Ella Fitzgerald America's undisputed First Lady of Song. Ella earned a remarkable 13 Grammy Awards throughout her career, a feat surpassed by only one other woman in rock and roll. She's still ahead in this hour. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll hit the top 10 with the mother of reinvention.
I think Madonna does it better than
Back with the final hour of the 100 greatest women of rock and roll. The artist at number 12 worked as a Playboy bunny and a folk singer before emerging as one of the most mysterious and provocative artists. Next artist led the way to crossover success when she put country in the pop charts.
Crazy.
The great
I'm crazy.
Patsy Cline.
Oh my God, I love Patsy. At age 10, she declared she would be a star at the Grand Ole Opry. But Virginia Hensley's dream was put on hold when her father walked out and she had to quit school to help support her family. It was her voice with its aching expressiveness that carried her out of poverty and all the way to the top.
I'm crazy for trying and crazy for crying.
Patsy Cline had this heartbreak in her voice and this unbelievable tone, this fat, juicy tone.
I go out walking after midnight.
It's like she was a country singer, but she totally understood the blues.
She made country music hip and cool.
I'm always walking after midnight, searching for you. I walk for miles along the highway.
Patsy Cline's unique style made her a star in life, a legend in death, a true musical pioneer.
I'm always walking after midnight, searching for you.
The artist who kicks off our top 10 has written songs that have been recorded by 20 women in our special alone. And to this day, she stands as the most successful female singer-songwriter in rock history.
I feel the earth move under my feet. I feel the sky tumbling down.
Carole King was a songwriter, wrote songs, a lot of people record her songs. She made her own record, and her own record was the voice of the women of that time.
And it's too late, baby, now it's too late. So we really did try to make it.
I'll tell you, one of the first people I listened to that really inspired me to be a songwriter was Carole King. That Tapestry record, every song on it I knew backwards and forwards, and I would sit at the piano for hours and play that record.
Tonight you're mine, completely.
I listened to Carole King a lot when I was younger. I just loved her purity and her strength and her presence. She just seemed really comfortable in her own skin, and she just was just really warm. I loved her.
So far away, doesn't anybody stay in one place anymore?
Carole King was always such an amazing writer.
I thought she had the greatest way of thinking about lyrics.
Doesn't help to know you're so far away. Yeah.
In the 70s, you couldn't argue with the power of Carole King.
When she was stripped of her wig on stage by an audience member, the artist at number 9 unleashed an image that commanded the age of music television to stop, listen, and watch.
She was the first music video star to challenge conventions of female beauty. Experimenting wildly with gender bending.
Loved it. First thing I saw was the bright red hair and the suit and the whole thing, and then she'd change it.
The ever-eclectic Annie Lennox is one of the few artists that combines style with substance. One who's classic and modern all at once. One who's even been hailed as the best white soul singer alive.
She has an incredible voice. I love her songs, and my favorite album of hers is Diva.
How many times do I have to try to tell you?
We all go through your regular human frailties. She injects that and then projects it in her work.
This is the joy that seldom spread. These are the tears we shed. This is the fear, this is the dread. These are the contents of my head. And these are the years that we've spent. And this is what they represent. And this is how I feel. Do you know how I feel?
There wasn't anybody like her before, and there isn't anybody now. Annie gets a gold star, doesn't she?
The history of women in popular music can pretty much be divided into before and after Madonna.
Madonna has been so influential.
When Madonna came, it took show business to a completely different level.
I think Madonna does it better than anybody else.
I'm still a fan of her power and her determination to be who she is and remain successful with it.
Let's get unconscious.
She completely knocked my socks off. And when that Lucky Star came on, suddenly it was like me and my friends found our star.
Stay by my side tonight. What you do to me, baby.
It was the very first time, and maybe the only time that I've seen raw artistry just sort of on display, and it's working. You know what I mean? No one has to do anything. She just walks in the room and everybody goes, who's that girl? Who's that girl?
Pose. I think that her whole life is like performance art.
Look around, everywhere you turn is heartache. It's everywhere that you go.
And she's kind of using the situation to send a message, and it's very interesting. But also she's enjoying, and I like that.
Vogue, Vogue, Vogue. I think she's an interpreter of culture, and she brings together music that people wouldn't necessarily ever get to hear otherwise.
She's in the gym. She's in the studio. She's songwriting. While you're sleeping, she's working, blueprinting her next reinvention. When 23 seems to be the operating age for beauty. Here's this woman who everyone's still interested in and musically seems to be doing it better than ever. So hats off to Madonna.
No one captures the true spirit, sound, and attitude of rock and roll better than this artist.
Chrissie Hynde was like the big thing for me.
Chrissie Hynde, of course. She's so different. She came out and was just like, wow.
She's got the kahunas.
I thought Chrissie Hynde and the Pretenders were such a turning point. You really hadn't heard anything done like that before, in that way, with that attitude.
I just always loved her records. There's a real mature kind of intelligent thing going on there. At the same time, her voice is so passionate. She really rocks out.
Middle of the road, he's trying to find me. I'm standing in the middle of life with my pants behind me.
She's just really a great writer. She's just written some great songs and, you know, tells you to f*** off and you love it.
Don't harass me, can't you tell I'm going home? I'm tired of still. I'm not the cat I used to be. I got a kid, I'm 33, baby.
I think you hear her influence on practically every female that's out there right now. Nobody's ever got close, in my opinion, to merging that combination of vocalist and guitarist.
I'll continue to get on stage and play guitar in a rock band. I'm not saying I'm a feminist. I'm not saying I'm anything. You know, what's it to me? Absolutely nothing. I'm not waiting on tables tomorrow.
Gospel great Thomas Dorsey once said, "Blues is a good woman feeling bad." And there can be no artist that knows the blues better than the artist at number 6.
I remember the blues is sort of a mixed up thing. You just have to feel it. Anything I do sing, it's part of my life.
Good morning, heartache.
Billie Holiday lived in a world of poverty, chaos, and racial prejudice.
Good morning, heartache.
She knew pain and infused it into her music.
Goodbye last night.
Behind the beat, but ahead of her time, Lady Day's vocal style redefined jazz and blues.
Treat me right, baby, and I'll stay home every day.
When I listen to her, I think she's singing just to me.
Just treat me right, baby, and I'll stay home night and day.
Her voice is very evocative of when you really hurt very much. Because even when she's up-tempo, you know, trying to be happy, there's a sadness about her.
I know you're gonna drive me away. Love is just like a faucet.
Billie Holiday is American music.
It turns off and on.
She influenced every single musician, from symphonic orchestras down to the greatest jazzmen that ever lived.
It has turned off and gone.
Don't even think of going anywhere now. When we come back, we'll hit the top 5 most influential women in music history. The artist who kicks off our top 5 began her career singing to patients while hospitalized as a child for polio. She would evolve into one of the most admired, enduring, and unique singer-songwriters in music history.
I don't mean to be mean, but there's only really been one woman artist, Joni Mitchell.
She
She's a total original. She's as significant in many ways as Coltrane or Charlie Parker.
I met a redneck on a Grecian Isle who did the goat dance very well. He gave me back my smile.
She was really great at capturing, you know, her experiences and her travels. She made it seem like her life was really exotic and exciting, and it inspired you to want to live a really exotic and inspiring life.
Joni Mitchell never lied.
I think my absolute favorite woman in music is Joni Mitchell. She's written so many songs that that touch me so deeply.
We are stardust, billion-year-old carbon. We are golden.
Every word is like another color, and she paints these pictures with her lyrics that are just, you wonder how she does it.
There's nobody that's more honest, you know, and more open. I just love that.
The way that she can voice her feelings and the way that she can include you in her whole life in just one sentence. She's amazing.
Don't it always seem to go? You don't know what you've got till it's gone. They pave paradise, put up a parking lot.
I think she's just written some really fantastic songs, and she writes amazing lyrics and beautiful melodies, and she has a great voice. And shall I go on?
They pave paradise, put up a parking lot.
This next artist set out to carry on the tradition of her blues idols, Sippy Wallace and Buddy Guy. 30 years later, she's found herself with a legacy of her own.
She was raised a Quaker with an ambition to become the female Muddy Waters.
He'll get me when he wants me. He's the finest loving man around.
California native Bonnie Raitt became the most unlikely blues legend. A master slide guitarist and fearless songwriter, Raitt created a style solely her own.
I admire her so much. She's such a great musician. Her slide guitar is just unmatchable, and her songwriting is great.
My gal, Bonnie Raitt.
Honey, you ain't no Prince Charming.
That's a voice, okay?
Are you ready for the tango, love? Come on for me, you feel impossible for love. Are you ready for the tango, love?
18 years into her career, Raitt's innovative work finally found commercial recognition with a #1 album, a sweep at the 1989 Grammys, and the honor of becoming the first woman to have a guitar named after her.
She is so real that she just inspires my hope in the show business world.
Thank you very much. Now you know why I do this for a living.
The artist at number 3 is known to friends as Pearl. She defined the role of women in rock with her impassioned performances and no-holds-barred persona.
Her voice was the embodiment of the turbulent 60s.
Oh, if I could pray and I try and see it.
A voice of lust and despair, excess and passion.
She had a black soul. She felt. Her singing wasn't about anything else except the feeling that she got. And she wasn't trying to be anything else except Janis Joplin.
Next tune is called Summertime.
In the 60s, there were very, very few women that were strong in the rock era. Janis was the one artist out of the whole psychedelic San Francisco scene that became a major star.
The first song I ever heard from her was Summertime, and if that song doesn't make you feel something, I wouldn't understand.
No, 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 you're blind.
Janis let it go. She'd just stamp her feet, da-da-da-da-da, you know, and let something out. It was beautiful to watch.
She was a very radical woman. Before that, women gave so much credence to what a man said, she didn't really care, and that was new. She just was emancipated.
I only saw her once. In 1 hour, I watched this, and I just, like, took it, you know.
She lived and died the 60s ethos and left behind some of the greatest blues ever recorded.
Feeling good was easy down when he sang the blues. Hey, feeling good was good enough for me. Good enough for me and my Bobby. Yeah. La-da-da, la-da-da-da, la-da-da-da-da.
There are just 2 artists left to go. Who's the greatest woman in the women of rock and roll? Ready to reveal our top 2 artists. For 5 hours, we've been building up to these extraordinary ladies. At number 2 is the artist who made one of the biggest comebacks in rock history.
She's absolutely, totally uninhibited.
Her movement is raw and sexual and free.
She's the real deal. She's the queen of it, you know.
Anna Mae Bullock, the skinny girl from Nutbush, Tennessee, thought she might grow up to be a nurse. Instead, she grew up to be a living legend, a survivor, and the first real female rock and roll singer. If rock and roll still means sex, sweat, abandon, and soul, then Tina Turner is where it all begins.
She's the best chick ever. Fantastic singer, great dancer, fantastic show.
I used to have pictures of her above my bed.
She's the sex machine.
And also, more important than that, the best voice. The best voice.
What's love got to do with it? Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken?
She has lived her life like a warrior. You know, she has been positive in the face of adversity. And I respect her so much spiritually for that.
She overcame unbelievable circumstance and has proved to be a really positive role model for young women.
Tina Turner has this incredible energy that, you know, you can't ever imagine stopping.
If you really want to see a great performer, then you must see Tina Turner live.
She is an amazing woman to have come this far and still do this, and still do it so well.
Why am I still here? Because I have desires. My life is totally free and flowing. It flows. I don't put limits on myself.
Who is the woman who's won the most Grammys in the history of recorded music? The woman who can sing R&B, gospel, pop, and even opera like no one else? You already know her as the Queen of Soul. Now, let her be known as the Queen of Rock and Roll.
First in singles, first on albums, first in rhythm and blues.
She's had more million-selling singles than any other woman in the history of recorded sound. And was the first woman ever inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Please welcome the Queen of Soul,
Miss Aretha Franklin.
Aretha Franklin.
She was crowned the undisputed Queen of Soul. All hail the Queen.
To listen to
Aretha sang about respect when I was 16. You know, I've learned more about being a woman from listening to her than I would have ever learned from any man.
I mean, when she sings, it's like a knife, just cuts right through you.
The power and conviction in her voice is just overwhelming. I mean, that's why people are in awe of her.
I have to tell you, the voice of God, if you want to know, is Aretha Franklin. You really see it happening. You see the muscles working. You see her doing it. And I like that. She's so emotional with her songs and so real that you can just feel her.
Just awesome. A mega voice. She represents women in music very, very well.
A rose is still a rose. For her to come out in '98 with that record and been making records since '68, you know what I mean? There's still very few, if any, female singers who can touch Aretha Franklin's voice.
I'm elevating Aretha to the level of the absolute queen because she has the most deep connection to her soul. She's the deepest soul singer I've ever heard.
That brings us to the end of our series. I hope you enjoyed our look back on these talented and powerful women who helped shape our culture and our history. I'll leave you now with a look at the young artists who are picking up where these great talents left off. I'm Susan Sarandon. Thanks for joining me.
I think that some of the voices that are happening today are some voices to be reckoned with.
I think Gwen's fantastic. I just love her voice.
Jill's great. She's just incredible.
Mariah Carey. I'm like the biggest Mariah Carey fan.
Paula Cole.
I love Lauryn Hill.
Shania.
Fiona Apple. I think she's a phenomenal talent.
Shirley Manson. Shirley's great. What a voice. God bless. There she goes.